when my disabled wife's van was towed by our power-hungry HOA president for not joining their mandatory association. She unleashed her secret weapon, her connections from 15 years as a K-9 officer. What would Eleanor do when she realized she'd picked a fight with the wrong family? The doorbell rang just as I was helping Sarah transfer from her wheelchair to the couch. We'd been in our new house at Sycamore Ridge for exactly 3 days. "Can you get that?" Sarah asked, adjusting her leg braces. After 15 years as a K-9 officer, a chase gone wrong had left her with partial mobility. But my wife was still the strongest person I knew. I opened the door to find a woman with perfect blonde hair holding a clipboard. 2 men in polo shirts stood behind her like bodyguards. "Welcome to the neighborhood." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "I'm Eleanor Matthews, president of the Sycamore Ridge Homeowners Association. We're here for your welcome packet and first month's dues." I scratched my head. That's odd. Our realtor said this property was exempt from the HOA. It's written in our closing documents. Eleanor's smile vanished. There must be some mistake. Every home in Sycamore Ridge belongs to our association. It's mandatory, not according to our paperwork. This property was developed before the HOA was formed. We have grandfather rights. Her eyes narrowed. "We'll need to see these supposed documents. The board meeting is Wednesday at 7 p.m. Bring them then." She thrust a thick folder into my hands. "In the meantime, here are our guidelines. You'll need to remove that ramp by your side door. It doesn't meet our aesthetic standards." My face grew hot. "That ramp is for my wife. She's disabled and needs it to enter the house." "Rules are rules," Eleanor said with a shrug. "You can apply for a variance, but the committee only meets quarterly. Next meeting is in August." From inside, Sarah called, "Who is it, Jake?" "Just the HOA introducing themselves," I answered, trying to keep my voice steady. Eleanor peeked past me, spotting Sarah on the couch. Something flickered across her face, not sympathy, but calculation. "Your situation doesn't exempt you from community standards. We pride ourselves on uniformity here." "Thanks for stopping by," I said firmly, starting to close the door. Eleanor stuck her foot in the doorway. "One more thing. Your wife's van with those service dog stickers? It needs to be garaged. No commercial vehicles in driveways overnight." "It's not commercial. It's equipped for her wheelchair." "It has advertising on it," she insisted. "It has a K-9 support decal because she was a police officer." Eleanor withdrew her foot. "The rules apply to everyone, Mr. Reynolds. Wednesday, 7 p.m. Don't be late." I shut the door, my hands shaking with anger. "What was that about?" Sarah asked as I returned to the living room. I handed her the folder. "We've met the local dictator. She says our house is part of their HOA and wants us to take down your ramp." Sarah flipped through the guidelines, her expression darkening. 56 pages of rules? Maximum grass height of 2 inches? No flags except on approved holidays? This is ridiculous. She also says your van can't be in the driveway because of the K-9 decal. Sarah slammed the folder shut. "That's not legal. The ADA clearly states." "I know," I said, sitting beside her. "We'll fight this." I kept all our closing documents in the fireproof safe. We spent the evening reviewing our paperwork. Sure enough, our property was explicitly excluded from the HOA's jurisdiction. The development had expanded around our lot, but our home had been built 10 years before Sycamore Ridge was even named. The next morning, I left for work at my usual time. Sarah had physical therapy at 10, so she'd be leaving later. I kissed her goodbye, never suspecting the war that was about to begin. At lunch, my phone rang. Sarah's voice was tight with fury. "They put a boot on my van." "What? Who did?" "Your new friend Eleanor and some towing company. I can't get to my therapy appointment." I immediately left work and raced home. When I arrived, Sarah was arguing with a man in a tow truck uniform while Eleanor watched from her porch across the street. "This is illegal," Sarah was saying, her wheelchair positioned to block the tow truck driver from approaching further. "You can't tow a vehicle from private property without proper authorization." "Ma'am," I have authorization right here, the driver said, waving a form. Signed by the HOA president for violation of community standards. I approached quickly. This property isn't part of the HOA. You have no jurisdiction here. Not my problem, the driver shrugged. I just go where they send me. Eleanor crossed the street, a smug smile on her face. Perhaps this will motivate you to attend Wednesday's meeting. Consider it a warning. Next time, your vehicle will be impounded. Sarah's eyes flashed dangerously. Few people knew that beneath her calm exterior was a woman who had taken down armed suspects and commanded respect throughout her police career. Remove this boot now, she said quietly. Or I make one phone call to my former captain, and you'll have 5 patrol cars here in minutes investigating an attempted theft. The driver looked uncertainly between Sarah and Eleanor. She's bluffing, Eleanor said dismissively. Sarah pulled out her phone, showing her police badge wallpaper. Try me. 15 minutes and 1 heated phone call later, the boot was removed. A patrol officer, Sarah's former rookie, arrived just to check on the situation. Eleanor retreated to her house, but the battle lines had been drawn. That night, I installed security cameras around our property. Sarah contacted her lawyer friend who specialized in housing discrimination. We were preparing for war, but we didn't realize how quickly it would escalate. Over the next day, Eleanor rallied her forces. Neighbors accidentally blocked our driveway. Anonymous complaints were filed with the city about our unsightly ramp. Someone even reported our sprinkler system was violating water restrictions, triggering an inspection. They're trying to wear us down, Sarah observed as we watched through the window, while Eleanor led a group of neighbors on a property value walk that stopped conspicuously in front of our house. What do they want? For us to move? No, Sarah said thoughtfully. Eleanor wants control, and there's something else going on here. Did you notice how quickly that tow truck showed up? I bet there's a kickback arrangement. What's our next move? I asked. Sarah's expression was determined. We gather evidence. We build allies. And we prepare for Wednesday's meeting. We spent that evening researching Eleanor Matthews. Sarah's police contacts provided interesting information. 3 prior complaints about HOA overreach, all mysteriously dropped. Property records showed Eleanor owned a rental house in the next county with the same towing company sign prominently displayed. This isn't just about us, Sarah realized. She's built a little empire here, and we're threatening it. Wednesday arrived with an unexpected twist. I returned home from work to find our driveway empty. Sarah's specially equipped van was gone. My heart hammered as I called her cell phone repeatedly, getting no answer. Just as panic was setting in, my phone rang with an unknown number. Jake? It's me. Sarah's voice sounded strained. Where are you? What happened? They towed my van while I was at physical therapy. I'm at Rapid Recovery Impound on Industrial Boulevard. They want $450 to release it, claiming the HOA authorized the removal for commercial vehicle violation. I called Captain Rodriguez, but he's in court all afternoon. Can you come get me? I'm on my way, I said, already heading back to my car. Hang tight. As I drove, fury built inside me. This wasn't just an inconvenience or a power play anymore. This was directly targeting Sarah's independence and mobility. Eleanor had crossed a line, and she was about to learn why that was a terrible mistake. The impound lot was surrounded by chain-link fence topped with barbed wire. Sarah waited outside the office in her wheelchair, her face tight with anger and humiliation. When she saw me, she tried to smile, but I could tell she was fighting back tears. I've been here for 2 hours, she said as I knelt beside her. The manager says they can't release the van without payment, even after I explained it's my mobility vehicle. I squeezed her hand. We'll pay it, then fight this legally. Did you get any paperwork? Sarah handed me a form. Authorized by Eleanor Matthews for commercial vehicle violation because of my K-9 support decal. She's claiming it's advertising. Inside the office, a board attendant barely looked up. For $150 to release, cash or credit. Additional $50 after 24 hours. This vehicle is specially equipped for a disabled person, I explained. Towing it is against federal law. He shrugged. Take it up with the HOA. I just processed the paperwork. I paid the fee seething. When we finally reached Sarah's van, I noticed a new scratch along the wheelchair ramp. Sarah saw it too and went silent. The controlled quiet that her former colleagues had called her storm warning. Take pictures of everything, she instructed. Every scratch, the paperwork, the lot. We're building our case. On the drive home, Sarah made calls. First to her lawyer friend, then to former police colleagues, and finally to a local news reporter who had covered her K-9 unit's achievements years ago. Melissa? To Sarah Reynolds. Remember that story you wanted to do on housing discrimination against first responders? I think I've got something for you. By the time we pulled into our driveway, Sarah had arranged for a news crew to meet us at the HOA meeting. As we approached our house, we noticed something new. Small American flags planted along our property line. What's this? I wondered. Our next-door neighbor, an older man named Frank, waved from his porch. Heard what happened with Eleanor and your van, he called. Those flags mark the original property line from before the development. I've lived here 30 years. Your lot was never part of their precious HOA. Sarah smiled, her first real smile of the day. Thank you, Frank. Been waiting for someone to stand up to that woman, he admitted. Most folks are too scared. She got the Gonzalez family evicted last year over a dispute about their food truck. Inside, we prepared for battle. Sarah changed into her formal police uniform, the one she'd worn for commendation ceremonies. Though retired, she was still legally allowed to wear it for certain functions. She pinned her medals and badges carefully, then added her service photo with her K-9 partner, Max, to her wheelchair pouch. Psychological warfare, she explained when she caught my questioning look. Eleanor wants to shame us. I'm going to remind everyone who they're really dealing with. The HOA meeting was held in the community clubhouse, a building with a single small ramp hidden around back. When we arrived, Sarah immediately noted the ADA violations. Front entrance must be accessible, she murmured, taking photos. Strike one. Inside, about 30 neighbors sat in neat rows facing a long table where Eleanor and 4 board members presided. A sign-in sheet circulated, which Sarah photographed before signing. Non-compliant homeowners will have 2 minutes to present their case, Eleanor announced, not looking up as we entered. Board decisions are final and... She faltered when she finally noticed Sarah in full uniform. Whispers rippled through the room. Officers Reynolds. Eleanor recovered quickly. You're out of order. We haven't called your case yet. Actually, came a voice from the doorway. I believe they're right on time. Heads turned as Captain Rodriguez entered in uniform, followed by 2 other officers and a woman with a press badge. Eleanor's face flushed. This is a private meeting. Media is not allowed. Public meeting in a public space. The reporter Melissa replied cheerfully. HOA meetings in this state fall under open meeting laws when they involve governance decisions. Sarah positioned her wheelchair at the center aisle. We're here to resolve several issues, Eleanor. First, the illegal towing of my ADA-compliant vehicle. Second, the harassment regarding our property, which documents prove is exempt from your HOA. Eleanor's knuckles whitened around her gavel. We have no record of any exemption. I stepped forward, placing our paperwork on the table. Original deed, 1978. Property survey from 2003. Title insurance documents specifically noting HOA exemption. And, I added, sliding forward a final paper, a cease and desist letter from our attorney regarding ADA violations. Captain Rodriguez stepped forward. We're also investigating a pattern of selective enforcement and possible kickback arrangements with rapid recovery towing. Several residents have now filed complaints. The room erupted in murmurs. A woman stood up nervously. They towed my son's car last month because his university sticker counted as signage. Cost me $400 to get it back. Another resident joined in. They cited me for a basketball hoop that was supposedly 6 inches too tall. Eleanor banged her gavel repeatedly. Order. These complaints are not on tonight's agenda. I move to add them, said a board member, an older woman who had been watching the proceedings with growing concern. And I move we review the towing company contract. Specifically, the portion that pays for Eleanor's vacation home landscaping. Eleanor's face went pale. Judith, that's completely inappropriate. Is it? Judith shuffled some papers. Because I've been reviewing the financial records as treasurer, and there are several payments to Matthew's landscape design registered to your son's address. The room went silent. I think, Sarah said into the quiet, we've identified the real problem, and it's not our K-9 support decal. Melissa's photographer captured Eleanor's expression perfectly as Captain Rodriguez stepped forward. Mrs. Matthews, we'd like you to come down to the station to answer some questions about possible misappropriation of funds. As Eleanor was escorted out, still protesting, the remaining board members quickly voted to recognize our property's exemption, refund our towing fees, and launch an audit of all HOA finances. Outside afterward, neighbors gathered around Sarah, sharing their own HOA horror stories. Frank brought us a celebratory bottle of wine. You've changed everything, he said. People have been afraid to speak up for years. Sarah looked thoughtful. This isn't over. HOAs serve an important purpose when run properly. The problem was corruption, not the concept. What do you mean? I asked. She smiled, the expression that had always meant she was forming a plan. I think I might run for the board. Someone needs to ensure this doesn't happen again. As we drove home, Sarah's phone rang. It was Melissa from the news station. This story's catching fire, she said excitedly. I've had 3 other HOAs in the county reach out with similar complaints. How would you feel about a larger investigation? With your background in law enforcement, you'd be the perfect consultant. Sarah caught my eye, raising an eyebrow in question. I smiled. Sounds like retirement just got more interesting. I'm in, Sarah told Melissa. On one condition, we focus on solutions, not just exposing problems. After hanging up, Sarah gazed out the window at our neighborhood. You know what this means, right? That Eleanor picked the wrong person to mess with? That, yes, Sarah laughed. But also that we need to get ready. Once the story breaks, there will be people from all over needing help with similar situations. Good thing I married a fighter, I said, reaching for her hand. Good thing I married someone who knows when to pay the towing fee and when to call for backup, she replied, squeezing my fingers. Now, let's go plan our next move. Sirens wailed in the distance as I paced our living room. Sarah sat calmly in her wheelchair, phone in hand, a slight smile playing on her lips. The clock on our wall read 8:03 a.m. They're here, she said, looking out the window. 2 police cruisers pulled up across the street, right in front of Eleanor's pristine Tudor home with its perfectly trimmed hedges. The whole neighborhood stopped to watch. Mr. Jenkins from next door even put down his garden hose and moved closer to his fence for a better view. Did you really need to call in the K-9 unit? I asked Sarah. Trust me, honey. Eleanor crossed a line when she had my van towed. Plus, when I called Rodriguez, he mentioned they've received other complaints about our little HOA. Officer Thompson, tall with her dark hair pulled back in a tight bun, stepped out of the first car with Ranger, her German Shepherd partner. From the second car emerged Captain Rodriguez himself, Sarah's former boss, along with another officer I didn't recognize. Eleanor burst through her front door in her silk robe, coffee mug in hand, face twisted in shock. What is going on here? She demanded loud enough for the whole block to hear. I couldn't help but snap a quick photo. After months of her taking pictures of our violations, this felt like sweet justice. Thompson approached with Ranger at her side. Mrs. Eleanor Walters? I'm Officer Thompson. We've received several reports about possible illegal activity connected to Pine Haven Gardens HOA. Eleanor's face turned ghostly white. That's absurd. What kind of illegal activity? Financial irregularities, intimidation, and possible fraud, Thompson replied, her voice level and professional. We need to see the HOA financial records immediately. This is outrageous. Eleanor sputtered, pointing directly at our house. They put you up to this. They're just mad about the towing. Captain Rodriguez stepped forward. Ma'am, these allegations came from multiple sources. Now, we can do this here or down at the station. Eleanor glared at us across the street. I waved. Sarah blew her a kiss. Fine, Eleanor snapped. Come in. But this is harassment, and I'll be filing a complaint. As the officers entered Eleanor's home, neighbors began to gather on their lawns. Whispers spread like wildfire. Phones came out to record the scene. Mrs. Patel from down the block hurried over to us. What's happening? She asked, breathless from her quick walk. Sarah smiled. Just some questions about HOA management. Did you know Eleanor raised the dues 3 times in 2 years? Yes, for the new landscaping and security system, Mrs. Patel replied. Have you seen any new landscaping? I asked. Or security cameras? Mrs. Patel's eyes widened as the truth sank in. 45 minutes later, more police cars arrived. Eleanor was escorted out her front door, not in handcuffs but clearly under escort. Captain Rodriguez carried a box of files. Rangers sniffed around the garage, where Officer Thompson discovered a safe hidden behind garden supplies. You did this, Eleanor shouted at us as they guided her toward a police car. You're not even real members. You'll regret this. Sarah wheeled herself to the edge of our driveway. Actually, Eleanor, we have you to thank. If you hadn't illegally towed my van, no one would have looked into your books. The crowd of neighbors grew as word spread. Martin Cooper, the HOA vice president, arrived looking flustered. Captain Rodriguez pulled him aside for a long conversation that left Martin pale and nodding repeatedly. Later that afternoon, as the police finally departed, Martin knocked on our door. His hands trembled slightly as he clutched a thick folder. I had no idea, he began, voice shaking. Eleanor kept the real books separate from what she showed the board. She's been skimming almost 30% of all dues for personal expenses. That's quite a racket, Sarah replied coolly. There's more, Martin continued. The towing company she used for your van. It's owned by her brother-in-law. They've been targeting non-HOA members for years, splitting the fees. I felt my jaw tighten. How many people? At least 12 families in the past year. Most just paid and joined the HOA to avoid more trouble. Sarah leaned forward in her wheelchair. And now, Martin swallowed hard. The board is meeting tonight for emergency elections. Eleanor's been removed pending the investigation. The police want statements from everyone who's been targeted. We'll be there, I promised. After Martin left, Sarah pulled out her laptop. This isn't over yet, she said, typing furiously. What are you doing? Emailing everyone who's been towed. Rodriguez gave me the list. Her eyes gleamed with purpose. Eleanor thought she could push around a disabled woman. She picked the wrong fight. That evening, as we prepared to attend the emergency meeting, our doorbell rang. A reporter from the local news station stood on our porch, microphone in hand, cameraman behind her. Mrs. Sarah Mitchell? We'd like to talk to you about the HOA fraud case that's breaking in Pine Haven Gardens. Sarah's smile could have lit up the whole neighborhood. Of course. Would you like to come in? By the time we arrived at the community center for the meeting, the parking lot was packed. Families who had never attended HOA meetings before crowded into the small space. The news van was parked outside. As Sarah wheeled through the door, the room fell silent. Then someone started clapping. Within seconds, the whole room joined in. Martin called the meeting to order with a bang of his gavel. First item, a formal apology to Sarah and James Mitchell, an immediate reimbursement of all towing fees. A man I'd never seen before raised his hand. I move that we also vote on making all future HOA membership truly voluntary, as it legally should be. Cheers erupted across the room. I squeezed Sarah's shoulder as we exchanged glances. This was only the beginning. Rain pounded against our windows as I poured Sarah a cup of tea. 3 weeks had passed since Eleanor's arrest, and our lives had changed in ways we never imagined. The court date is set for next month, Sarah said, scanning an email on her tablet. The prosecutor wants me to testify about the towing incident. I settled into the armchair across from her. Are you ready for that? More than ready. She set down her tablet. Did you see the notice from Martin about today's HOA meeting? I nodded. The emergency election had placed Martin as president, with Mrs. Patel as treasurer and Mr. Jenkins as secretary. Their first official act had been to make HOA membership truly optional. They want me to head a new committee, Sarah continued, a hint of excitement in her voice. What kind of committee? Accessibility and community relations. She spun her wheelchair in a little circle. Funny how they suddenly care about ramps and handrails. The doorbell rang, interrupting our conversation. I opened the door to find Mrs. Patel standing there with a large cake. For you both, she said, handing it to me. The least I could do. I should have spoken up years ago about Eleanor's behavior. Come in, I offered. Sarah just made tea. Mrs. Patel stepped inside, looking around with appreciation. Your home is lovely, so different from when the Thompsons lived here. Sarah wheeled into the hallway. Did you know the Thompsons? Oh yes. Mrs. Patel nodded vigorously. They left after Eleanor threatened to sue them over their fence height. They were the fourth family on this street to move because of her. We gathered in the kitchen, and Mrs. Patel filled us in on years of Eleanor's reign of terror. The excessive fines, the constant surveillance, the selective enforcement of rules. The neighborhood watch was just her excuse to spy on people, Mrs. Patel explained. And that security system we paid for? It only covered her house and the community center. After Mrs. Patel left, I helped Sarah get ready for the meeting. The community center had been renovated in record time to include proper wheelchair ramps and accessible bathrooms. Funny what the threat of an ADA lawsuit can accomplish, Sarah remarked as we drove over. The meeting room was packed again, but this time the atmosphere felt different. Gone was the tension that had always hung in the air during Eleanor's reign. People chatted freely, children played in the back of the room, and a table of refreshments lined one wall. Martin called the meeting to order. First, I'd like to welcome everyone, members and non-members alike. This is a community meeting, not just an HOA meeting. Applause filled the room. Next, I'm pleased to announce that the county prosecutor has filed formal charges against Eleanor Walters for embezzlement, fraud, and misuse of HOA funds. More applause, louder this time. Now, I'd like to introduce our newest committee chair. Sarah Mitchell will be heading our Accessibility and Community Relations Committee. As Sarah wheeled to the front, the room erupted in cheers. I felt a surge of pride watching her take the microphone. Thank you, she began. When we moved here, we thought we'd found our forever home. Then we discovered what living under Eleanor's version of an HOA meant. People nodded in understanding. But that's the past. Now we have a chance to build the kind of neighborhood we all want to live in. My first proposal is to use the recovered funds, over $75,000 that Eleanor stole, to make our playgrounds accessible to all children, including those with disabilities. The vote was unanimous. After the meeting, as we mingled with our neighbors, Captain Rodriguez appeared at the door. He made his way through the crowd to reach us. Thought you'd want to know, he said quietly. We found evidence that Eleanor has been doing this in 3 different neighborhoods. She moves in, takes over the HOA, schemes money for a few years, then sells her house at a profit and moves on. A serial HOA scammer, Sarah marveled. I've never heard of such a thing. Neither had we, Rodriguez admitted. But thanks to you, we're now looking at similar cases across the county. On our way home, Sarah was unusually quiet. I reached over to touch her hand. What are you thinking about? Remember how angry I was when they towed my van? She asked. How helpless I felt. I nodded. That day had been terrible for both of us. I never thought it would lead to all this. I was just trying to stand up for myself, but it turned into something bigger. As we pulled into our driveway, we noticed something new. A small sign had been placed in our front yard. It read, Home of the Pine Haven Gardens Accessibility Committee Chair. Sarah laughed. Now that's a sign I don't mind having in our yard. The next morning, I was surprised to find Sarah already up and dressed when I came downstairs. Going somewhere? I asked. We both are, she replied. The prosecutor called. They're executing a search warrant on Eleanor's vacation home today. Apparently, she bought it with HOA money. I whistled. How much did she steal altogether? They're still calculating, but it's well over $200,000 from our neighborhood alone. We drove to the courthouse, where Sarah gave her official statement. The prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman named Diane, seemed impressed by Sarah's detailed account. Most victims don't document things as thoroughly as you did, she commented. Sarah smiled. 15 years in law enforcement teaches you to keep good records. As we left the courthouse, a group of people waited near our car. I recognized them from Martin's list, other families who had been targeted by Eleanor's towing scheme. We wanted to thank you, a man in a wheelchair similar to Sarah's said. None of us had the courage to fight back like you did. Or the connections, his wife added with a smile. Sarah shook hands with each of them. The real change happens now, with all of us working together to build a better community. 6 months later, we hosted a neighborhood barbecue in our backyard. The new playground equipment had been installed, complete with accessible swings and ramps. Eleanor had pleaded guilty to avoid a longer sentence and was serving 18 months in county jail. As I flipped burgers on the grill, I watched Sarah showing neighborhood kids how her service dog, Max, could fetch items for her. The children were fascinated, asking questions about her wheelchair and her previous job as a K-9 officer. Martin approached me with a cold drink. You know, this neighborhood has never been more united. Sometimes, I replied, watching my wife laugh with our neighbors. It takes someone trying to force rules on everyone to remind us what community really means. And sometimes, Martin added, it takes someone brave enough to say no. I raised my drink in a toast to saying no to bullies and yes to real community. Around us, Pine Haven Gardens had transformed. Neighbors chatted across fences, children played freely between yards, and for the first time since we'd moved in, it truly felt like home.